So, a very special video today. Last of the year in terms of analysing the latest Grand Prix, our fallout videos and things like that. This is our big season review. Very kind of Luke from Highside News to join us once again. And this is a long one, guys. We literally cover everything. If you want the fundamental wrap up of everything MotoGP from Valencia this weekend to Mark's first test for Ducati, all the way to analysing everything that's happened in the run into the final weeks of the season. We've covered everything here. At the end, we go over our season predictions that we made together at the start of the season, and we have a bit of a laugh going over, in some cases, some crazy predictions we made now that we look back. So once again, had a lot of fun having Luke on. Long one, this one. We go over everything, like I said, and hope you enjoy. Cheers. Luke, welcome back. Third appearance now, I believe.
Yeah, I think
for
so.
you. It's great to have you back on. And today we get to laugh at how hilarious our predictions were, which we're going to do a bit later on. And we're going to go over, like I would normally do after a race weekend, I do my fallout videos. We're going to do that together. We're just going to talk about this weekend. And then later on, we're going to talk about everything in this video. I hope you got time, mate, because we're covering it all to finish the season off. Anyway, what did you make of this weekend, mate? You've got a back-to-back world champion, and it was filled with drama and excitement.
Yeah, obviously several different storylines going into the weekend. Obviously, we got Pecco and Martin taking the title fight down to the final round, and also Marc Marquez's last ride with Repsol Honda. Could say it didn't end how he would have wanted it to on the Sunday, but I think it was one of the best MotoGP races of the season, purely for just the amount that happened. There had been some over the flyaways where it was just a bit dull and a bit boring. It would be like a Martin or someone like that, or Bezzecchi or someone would just break away and then that'd be it. It'd be done. Whereas I like that there was several leaders. Obviously, we had the drama with Martin. Yeah, I think it was a solid race all round.
Yeah, I thought it was good as well. I did you get emotional Mark's last race with Honda? I know you're a big Marquez guy, mate. It's just did it, bubble up inside you, and you were like, oh no, I can't believe he's finally leaving his almost childhood team.
Uh, no, no emotions. Other than today, when watching the test when he was on a Grassini Ducati, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, that was
We will talk
interesting.
about that. The bike looked absolutely banging with that livery on it as well. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, yeah, it was a really good race on Sunday. It was awesome. And I thought it was going to turn out one way, which I was going to be extremely happy about when Jack went into the lead. And yeah, somewhere inside me, I just knew he wasn't going to win that. I don't know why, but I got started to get excited. It's the hope that kills you, as you know. I did start to get excited and did not quite work out. But that had everything, that race. It's just the only shame about it was that the title fight was basically done so early in the race, which would have been nice to have that go maybe a bit longer in the race where we still was a chance for a bit longer. But yeah, it was all sewn up pretty quickly. But it was a good race if you look at it independently of that as well. And speaking of Martin going out early, was he? Was he? I mean, considering how good he was on Saturday, and he was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was exceptional on Saturday. Did he need to panic there and go that early and like try and force that move? Did he have the pace in his pocket if he needed it?
That's the thing, and it's the thing that's annoyed me with Martin for a couple of years now. He's just so what's the word? He almost doesn't think before he makes a decision, and will just go for it in the moment, and then obviously regret it once it's happened. Because normally with Martin, obviously he made his move on Pecco. Could also put it down to maybe the slipstream effect and the downforce effect from the new, the bikes and all the wings nowadays. But I can't help but think that he just got it wrong into that corner and maybe was a bit overly ambitious. But Pecco did everything he needed to do at that point. He was in front. He had Martin right behind him, and even if Martin passed him, he would have still had him there and had the title sewn up there and then. So, I mean, Martin had to make the move, but maybe a bit too early and a bit overly ambitious with the Pecco move. But yeah, it was good, and it was pretty much sewn up for Pecco at that point because he didn't really run into issues later on either.
Yeah. Uh, and you feel like even if Martin did work his way through the field to win it, Bagnaia would have done enough. Like he did on Saturday. What was it? If Martin won both races, he just needed to come fifth in both races. We was doing the minimum amount of homework there in the first race, and you just feel like he's probably going to at least be able to do that again. He is such a good Sunday guy, Pecco. He can always turn around if someone's quicker than him on a Saturday. He seems to always be able to be like, well, you know what? I don't know if it's just him and he feels differently. He can sort of make those improvements, or the advantage of being in a factory team, maybe he can pull resources and things like that. But either way, whatever it is, he can always make that step on a Sunday. And that's where I was always confident that he was going to hold on, even if Martin did put the pressure on. But yeah, it would have been nice to see Martin maybe not lose his head in that moment. And even if he waited and made that move later on, he was so quick that he probably could have still gone on and won that race. But yeah, it just took a bit of sting out of it. But then we got loads of drama. You had Binder go into the lead and then give himself a long lap penalty, and then
Yeah,
Jack crashing out of the lead, and
bet that one.
even on Saturday with Quartararo going up the inside of Pecco and losing the front, that could have ended differently.
Yeah, it's just Valencia and a time of year they do it. I always wanted to go to Valencia purely because it's the final round, but it's just the thing of it keeps getting closer and closer to December, and I'm like, I think we spoke about this before, but
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't want to go to Valencia in December. I'd rather go to like Catalonia in the summer. But
yeah, yeah.
it's
Uh,
just a weird place to hold a final round and a
yeah.
weird time to hold the final round of the season.
And I still think it would be a fun one to go to. But you're right. It is like, imagine going to like that coast in Spain and being like, oh yeah, picturesque, and then it's like, oh yeah, but it's like 13 degrees or some shit, you know.
You can pretty much see the whole track when you go there. I know people that have been and I can't remember where they've sat, but they've been able to see the whole track other than one corner. And it's
Well, it's
like,
got that stadium type
yeah,
design, doesn't it?
yeah,
So I
like
actually did look at it. I seriously did consider it this year, and me and the partner were looking at going just because didn't go to Silverstone this year, so I didn't get to one in the end, which is I'm actually embarrassed about, really, because I just feel like I should always get to one. I should always get to one, but I didn't get to one, and that was my like last resort. I was like, oh, but then it's so close to Christmas and that, and you've got other things on, and I just in the end I was just like, nah. But if it is one I will go to eventually, but we'll see.
I think as well with the
Um,
test, it's good value as well. I know that a load of people went to the test today after. 'Cause
so that'd be
I think
fun as well. You get a bit
yeah,
more value out of it. You can.
I think I seen it was like €10 to go today for like the whole 7 hours of track action. So that's
That'd be
like,
brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You just get
yeah.
to see all the new bikes, all the new people on their new
Mm.
bikes as well.
Any other performances you picked out from the weekend you wanted to mention? I mean, I know we had Digi was good again, but got his podium taken away for tire pressure rules. We will talk about tire pressure rules later on. I've got it in my notes. Um, but yeah, I mean, was there anyone else that caught your eye?
Um, Raul Fernandez. I know that I can't remember if it was it with you where we mid season we were sort of slating him, hadn't really been anywhere, hadn't
Yeah,
done anything.
and to be fair, at the time, done shit all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At the time, he didn't do anything. It was a bit like, okay, yeah, how are you still around, sort of thing. You didn't do anything on the KTM, and now you're not doing anything on the Aprilia, and it's just a top five was needed. I think it's his first top six in MotoGP as well. So
Okay.
he waited a while to get it done. So he's taking his time, slowly getting there throughout the season.
You still
20th in
do feel
France.
like there might be something there with him, but
Yeah,
you know,
he was so good in Moto2, and now to come up to MotoGP and be like that, it's just a bit like I can't figure him out. What sort of bike he'd need under him? Whether he, I don't know, an inline four maybe would be better for him. Get him in Yamaha. I don't know.
yeah. Well, we'll see. Does anyone? I mean, I was gonna say, does anyone want to do that? But you know what? There's always hope with the Yamaha as
Uh,
well.
Alex Rins did, so
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, his other choice was not great either. So
No, yeah, neither choice was great. What other rider did I want to point out about? There was someone else, Maverick Vinales. I wanted to point him out, but not for good
yep.
reasons. How do you
Okay.
start the weekend so well? Get was he on? He was on the.
It was
He
on.
was
It
gonna
was
be
on.
on pole and then got taken off him because of a
That's
warm up
right. That's right.
incident. Um, and then he finished the actual race in 10th, and he chose the wrong tire for both the sprint and the main race. Like everyone chose the same
It
tires
seems
other than
odd.
Maverick. It's like it's not the first time it's happened with Maverick. He's an odd character, isn't he? I
Yeah.
can never figure him out.
Look, to be
He's
honest,
so
he's one of those guys that I've always thought is a little maybe overrated. There's no doubt he's got something there because he can win races when he's in the right conditions. But he just never, even early, like when he was at Yamaha, and I was like, this. Everyone's like, he's Rossi's new teammate and all that stuff, and he's quick. I was still just like, yeah, but what's he actually like? What's he gonna do? Like, it could
yeah,
never take him that seriously. Um, but
he was good at the start, and even at the start of the season when they turned up, he got a podium in Portugal, fourth in America. It was like, okay, maybe Maverick is here to actually. Obviously, the wet race, Maverick's never been great in the wet, so in Argentina,
mhm,
so that's poor. But it was a bit of a you're thinking, okay, maybe Maverick is here, maybe Aprilia have improved, but I think Aprilia have taken a step back this season. I genuinely think I think Aleix did worse than he did last season by like
yeah,
6 points, even though there's more points available this season than
yeah,
last.
yeah.
And Maverick really could only get better from last season, I guess. But yeah, he's one that puzzled me throughout the weekend and probably will puzzle me next year as well.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking. He's finished 10 seconds off the lead in the end, which is ridiculous when you think about like he
He
was
started
should have been running
fourth,
at the
and
front, really.
he was,
Um,
and then his tire. I think he picked the soft rear tire for the full distance race and the medium rear tire for the sprint race.
yeah, and
It's
in a
like,
race where so many guys near the front went down or made
yeah,
mistakes, it's like, how have you still finished all the way down there?
yeah, he just started dropping back and just kept going, and it was one of those races really where Maverick, in reality, if he'd gone with the right tire, could have had a podium for the end of the season. Where he's had in the end, he's had a very mediocre end to what started out as a really good year.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, we'll discuss Priller a bit later on because they're another one I'd written down here. Because they have lost a little bit of ground, haven't they? But I think it's an interesting one. Now, MotoGP, I think we're done. I mean, everything we've talked about it. We've talked about it. Moto2, Fermin Aldeguer. I mean, I don't want to say. I mean, I don't want to compare him to anyone, but it's starting to look a bit Pedro-y, really. I mean, and I know Pedro's probably switched off a little bit. If he had to win those races to secure the championship, I don't know if Fermin has such an easy run at it, but you can't deny the guy is just smashing everybody at the moment. So how many does he run on the one on the trot now? Is that 5? It's stupid.
Uh, 4 on the trot and
4 on the trot, and
fastest
then
lap, 3 of them, and pole in 2 of them. So
yeah. So there you go. I mean,
yeah,
so
I mean,
I don't know.
you say that about against Pedro, but he beat him in Thailand and Malaysia, and that's when Pedro hadn't even got the championship wrapped up yet. So he's clearly I don't want to say as talented because Pedro is just, I think, another level, but he is up there with the same ability as Pedro and will probably be in MotoGP. And I was going to say next year, but in 2025, sorry. I'm thinking it's
Yeah,
24.
we're not there yet. No,
No, we've just had
close. We're
testing.
close.
Cool. Yeah.
um, how did your boys
He's,
do this weekend? Let Sam Lowe's last race on Moto2.
ah, nah, you say about emotions with Marc Marquez. That was,
Yeah,
Sam Lowe's,
I knew that would have got you, mate.
probably one of the riders that I've been watching since I was younger. Um, yeah, that was weird. But going to World Superbikes on a Ducati, I'm excited for that. But
It's very
a
exciting, isn't it?
that's a different story altogether. Jake Dixon. As much as I love Fermin Aldeguer, seeing him take third place off Jake Dixon this weekend wasn't great. I was really hoping
Oh
Jake
yeah,
would.
he's done him in the championship there on the last day as well.
Yeah, yeah. He just took third place off of him, like in the final round of the season. So that was great. But no, I like Fermin. I can't remember what year it was. Might have been the year I saw you at Silverstone. His family were all up in the stands watching, and me and my mate were up sat with his family watching Fermin go around. Different outcome that weekend. I think he crashed. Um, So, he's made the improvements. Apparently, Pramac Ducati want him. So, the future's
Oh yeah.
bright for that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean he's looking every bit um capable. And then with all the links that happen with all this late drama with rider moves and stuff like that,
Yeah.
there are obviously links with him. He's coming into form at the right time. But yeah, he's absolutely on another level to the rest of the Moto2 field at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
much notice of this race this weekend, to be honest. Like I watched
Which,
it with
what, the
Moto2,
Moto2?
but
Yeah.
I just like he's just run away at the front. It's fine. It's done. I don't know.
Always
Did you
the
notice
same.
anything else interesting you needed to talk about on Moto2?
Um, well, I mean, this race-wise, not really, other than Pedro and Ayagura and Tony Arbolino, sort of the three that you would think would fight for the championship, did nothing in this final race.
Hmm.
Um, just I think who else? Dennis Foggia actually looked right, ninth place in that race. That was kind of good for Dennis
Yeah,
from what he's
good
shown all
performance.
season. I don't
You
know,
know,
was that his best result of the season? Probably. He hadn't really.
I'd say it would have been. I mean, I've not really mentioned him. I don't think I've mentioned him all
uh,
season.
I've
But
not really noticed. I've noticed the name in practice, but like other than that, yeah, that was his best result of the season, first top 10. Yeah, fair enough
good
from him.
stuff,
But
Dennis.
yeah, you said about Brits a minute ago. Obviously, we got the Rory Skinner whole saga and
Oh
how
yeah.
he's been
Well,
figured out.
I think we'll leave that one for later for you. All right, we'll leave you that one for just after we talk about Moto3. How about that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Moto3, uh, Ayumi Sasaki,
Yeah, that was
fantastic.
about
I
time.
think this is just if only he'd done this a few weeks ago, we might have
Well, all season
had a
long,
different
really.
situation here. But yeah, I mean, I was stoked to see. I'm a big fan of his. I quite like him. He's just had. First of all, he gave away such a big lead at the start of the season when he was barely finishing any races, and then just in these races that just could have gone his way, they just never did all season. But yeah, he was brilliant at the weekend. Um, and yeah, another race that you know it was good again. Moto3 is always good, but again, I didn't pay a huge amount of attention to it.
Yeah, I like Iyumi. I think he's very likable. I think he's one of those riders that everyone seems to rate, even when he was John McPhee's teammate and wasn't really doing much at the Petronas Moto3 team. And but yeah, he's come on. He's going into Moto2 next year, I believe, with Husqvarna as well. So good future for him there, and joining
Mm,
Masia going up as well. Obviously, like you said, the main thing that cost him that title was why didn't he do that all season? He clearly
yeah,
can. This is one of those things with Sasaki. He's been around it feels like he's been around for a long time. I don't know if he has, but yeah, he made his debut in 2016, so he's been around for quite a while in Moto3.
yeah,
And it's just these little mistakes that he always makes. Like you think about Qatar last year, he was absolutely storming away, and then he had a little moment, and his fairing came off, and he had to put into the pits because he just
yeah,
wasn't getting any speed anywhere. It's,
yeah,
it's those things with Sasaki, but he is a solid rider on his day. He's like a bit of Maverick Vinales in a way. His day comes
yeah,
not very often, but when it comes, it's good.
yeah. And he's one of those ones. I don't know if he'll do much um, in Moto2,
Yeah,
but uh, he just always, like I said, even when like he wasn't doing much, everyone always still rated him because he just sometimes just looks so quick. Sometimes that you're like, he's got to be like, just do that a lot. Like you've obviously got it there. But yeah, this year, I mean, he got unlucky a few times. Sometimes in Moto3, I always say that there is obviously a skill and a knack to it that some riders have and some don't. But when it's those like 4 or 5, 6, sometimes 10 of you going into the last lap in one group, you can't always like you can put yourself where you think you're in the best position, but by the time the sequence of corners work themselves out, you get towards the last corner, you know, everyone's trying to throw one up the inside. You just have to have hope that you've been in the right position as that sequence of corners has come at you, and then you've ended up in the position to make the move at the end. And like I said, there is a knack to it because some guys do it consistently, which means there has to be a knack to it. But yeah, he sort of just found himself a little bit unlucky in some of those a couple of times. And then I will say Masia was brilliant a few times coming into these latter stages of races where he just could pull the pin and just go. And
Mm.
yeah, again, brilliant, right? I mean, we could talk about it now if you want. Talk about the Qatar with the
Mm.
dirty tactics they've been labelled. Mick Doohan was not happy. Mick Doohan was not happy at all. How did you see that?
See, I think there's like several layers to all of that with what happened. Obviously, Adrian Fernandez getting involved as well. The Jaume Masia thing, I don't really see much of an issue with Jaume pulling off those moves because I think what I thought at the time is, what if Marc Marquez had done that, like for a championship fight? Would people have been up in arms if it was a MotoGP championship battle and it was Marc Marquez running out? I don't know, Dovi back in the day. Would they have been, up in arms about that? I don't think they would have. There probably are a few times where he did. Or it's like Pedrosa or Lorenzo. Obviously, the Rossi scenarios were different because they did clash the fan bases. But I think it's just because it's Moto3 and they've not really got these massive fan bases like they all do. And I don't know, I didn't see much of an issue with it personally. The Adrian Fernandez bit where he got involved as well, I think that's just bad blood with him and KTM since he got kicked out of Red Bull KTM. I think it was the Tech 3 squad in Moto3, and his brother got booted out by KTM in MotoGP. I think that was a bit of bad blood personally, and a bit of
Okay.
yeah, you kicked us out. We'll stop you from winning the championship, since Husqvarna is pretty much KTM's just rebranded.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I didn't see an issue. What were your thoughts on on that
I mean,
side of it?
I'm in a similar boat. The ones that looked bad were when he, I think I got into turn 6 or something, and he sort of just straight lined it once he got up the inside of a human. I'm
That one
like,
was
I mean, he disguised it pretty well because it does look like you kind of have just missed your marker there or something. But he did it twice to the same guy. I mean, I think he's doing that on purpose. I think as much as it's like, it's one of as much as it is like a deliberate thing. I don't
mm,
think in motorcycle racing you can ever and should ever like punish for that because there's no contact. Now, I know if a Yumi leans in, then there is contact, but he doesn't because he wants to stay in the race. So I get that there's like, I think it's one of those sort of um, policeable kind of incidents where you know it's a little bit dodgy. There's nothing you can do about it. And if that's the case, then you can do it. That's the fact. And like you said, if it happens at other levels and with other riders, people probably wouldn't care as much. But yeah, the distasteful part is where Fernandez gets involved, and that seems a little bit dodgy. But again, teammates, aren't they? And I know they're new teammates, but the Spaniards are good at this as well. They stick together. I don't want to bring up Sepang 2015, but the Spaniards help each other out. That's what they've always been like that.
mm.
So the yeah, there's nothing you can do. If only like there's no reason why the Husqvarna team couldn't have tried to do it back with Colin Vire and stuff like that, ruffle a few
Yeah, he was
feathers,
up
and he did get up and throw an elbow at one point, didn't he? But it was just like he
there.
wasn't quick enough to be there at the front on the day, and Adrian Fernandez was, and that was the difference.
Yeah, I think the Adrian Fernandez bit was, yeah, that was a bit, but I mean, no one's gonna know if Leopard had told him to do that. There's always the chance that he's just gone out and done that on his own because
And I feel for me, I feel like that's probably what happened.
yeah, well, you see how him and Jaume celebrated after that race when Jaume won the
Mm,
title. I think they're clearly friends and they get along. So it's
yeah,
just like you said, the thing of them sticking together. But yeah, it was a little bit distasteful that bit. But the Jaume bit, I didn't see anything wrong with. He didn't. I don't think he hit him at all. Really, he
no, you
lifted
never.
him.
I don't.
So there was
Yeah,
maybe a little bit of contact, but I don't think it was. it wasn't like he's gone and absolutely punted him off the track like Marquez did to Bezzecchi this weekend, and there was no penalties for that on that first lap incident with Valencia. So, it's one of those
Yeah.
things. You complain about one thing, but the other thing, which is even worse, then doesn't get looked at really at all. So,
No.
you know, it's just
Yeah. I think it was
viewers.
a bit of an overreaction. Sorry, Mick. I think you've overreacted there, mate.
Oh yeah, he would have done it. He would have done that. He would have done it back in his day. There's no way he went off.
You know, what I saw a clip of today, and it always makes me smile. This one where, and not that he did anything dodgy. There was maybe a little bit of contact in this, but it was Jerez, whatever year it was, 90 something, and the one where the crowd is on the track
Yeah.
during the last lap, and Mick throws one up the last corner, and there's a little bit of contact with Crivier there, but the crowd's gone early because Crivier's in front, coming around the last lap, and they're just loving it, you know, and Mick just throws up the inside of the last corner, and I think they rub a little bit, but it doesn't. I don't think it's enough contact to sort of shaft him out. But then Crivier just like high sides, and the bike just goes flying, and Mick Doohan's just coming over the line like, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I just saw that today, but not that was a dirty thing or whatever. But it, stuff happens. Just give a little nudge there on the way into the last corner. It was nice.
Rubbing is
But
racing.
yeah, that's it. And yeah, so that is like the fallout from this weekend. We had a world championship crowned, and then Moto2, Ferdinand Gur's a freak, and in Moto3, Sasaki actually won a race. We wish he did it earlier, but he didn't. Now, I've got some topics we need to go over, just latest news and things like that, and just things that happened over the season. I've got a list of riders to talk about. I know you've got some stuff you want to talk about as well. My first topic is sprint races. First season of sprint races is done and dusted. I've got two questions for you because for me, they are different questions. The first question is, do you like them? The second question is, do you want them in MotoGP?
Sprint races, I think my opinion changes like every week with them. I like them for the entertainment factor. I think they do bring more viewers on a Saturday at the races and on the TV. So I think that's a massive positive. And I do like them for that sense. And I do like the drama that they bring. The side I don't like is when you see like a Martin or a Pecco easily run away with it. And then you think, well, that's Sunday decided as well. Because when you look at it, if you win a sprint, you're probably going to win a main race as well. I think that's how it went for the majority of the season. But I liked them though. I think, yeah, other than it was a little bit of a spoiler sometimes, unless conditions were different or, riders crashed, it spoiled the main race a little bit. But I think they're a solid addition, and I think everyone who complained about them at the start of the season probably can see the positives now as well about, the fans being brought in on a Saturday as well.
Yeah, I think that will be, like, for the record, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're here to stay, right? And the reason I say that they're different questions are because I feel similar to you about the actual enjoying them. I said it at the time when the first few happened that I really did enjoy it. It gives another dimension to Saturday, and you really do have to tune in on Saturday. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't matter if you don't watch qualifying. Like I enjoy watching qualifying. I like time attacks and I like late drama as the time start tumbling in the last 2 minutes, and it's brilliant to watch. But a race is way better. Like a race is a race. I always will prefer a race to that. And it means that you kind of do have to watch on Saturday because you're going to miss something, So in that sense, it is good. It is entertaining. It obviously helps with viewership and crowd numbers and things like that. It is having the effect. Do I still want them there? Probably not. I'm just too old school and traditional. I don't know what. Again, I'm not going to complain if they are there. I'll happily watch them, enjoy them. But I don't know what it is about. Like, I just like if it's like the top level of something, like with like superbikes and stuff, even with like Moto2 and that, like just do what you want. It's like different, have a different format. I don't care. But I'm just a very like, I like the, race day is Sunday. Sunday's race day. That is Grand Prix racing in all forms. You race on the Sunday. That's people's day off. They go to work the next day. why do we qualify on a Saturday? Well, we needed to figure out which order they're going to start in, so we qualify on the day before. I was like, well, how do we, the guys need to get to learn the track a bit. All right, on Friday, come and do a bit of a practice. And that's like the traditional format. And I really like that kind of, and I'm a less is more kind of guy. I think you can get too much of a good thing. At the moment, it doesn't feel like it's too much. But if you then, like what you said, if you start taking into account the fact that, it can make Sunday predictable, um, it does sort of give you a sense of what's going to happen on Sunday already. It's not always about the winner or whatever, because we have had different results quite a bit, but it does take a bit of a sting out of it, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I'm not completely against it. I just, if I was making the decisions, I'd be like, I'm old fashioned. I like to keep it the way it was. But I look back at when I started watching Grand Prix racing. They're the period that I like the most. So, yeah, I'm probably just nostalgic about the way I had it when I was a kid, or at least a year ago. But yeah, I like them. I wouldn't keep them, but they're not going anywhere, so I may as well enjoy them. What else have I got here? The other big one is tire pressures. So it's flared up again. Yes, what day is it? It's flared up again on Sunday. With Digi 3 second deduction takes him off the podium. We're all mad about tire pressures. But is there a part of you that thinks, well, it's the same rules for everyone, so why are we having an issue with it? Like, why aren't they just starting with higher tire pressures? Nobody else got pinned for it in that race. So, is it one of those things where we're all sitting there going, and you get to hear a lot of this when you looking on like Twitter and stuff and whatever, everyone's angry about it. But it's the rules, right? So it's the same as like any other rule. Like, you can't track limits and that or whatever. You got to stay in the track. You got to stay in a certain range. I know if the temperatures change or you're behind another bike when you didn't think you were going to be, why aren't they just giving the tire pressures so that they know in every situation they're not going to drop below the minimum? So I don't know how you feel about it. So I think it's silly, but I also think just play within the rules of the game.
Well, the thing with, I get it if it's an extreme, like under pressure, then that's bad. But I think Digi's was like phone. Let me try to find it on Twitter, because I'm sure his crew chief put on how low they actually were
It was
under.
very minimal. I think it was very
I
close to
seem to
not being under.
Yeah, that he said it was like, it'll be near the top. Give me one. There it is. Yeah. Sorry to my boy. Yesterday we were correct. When 0.2 bar higher for just 2 laps of the race, they were 0.01 out of the front tire too low. So it's like, for 2 laps, 0.01. Is that worth the penalty and him losing the podium after the podium celebration, after being given a trophy, after being in Parc Ferme? Do you know what I mean? It's just a bit like,
No, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But
he's gone through all of that. He celebrated his, what was I, second, third podium in MotoGP, and then he's been like, "Oh yeah, by the way, mate, you were 0.01. You know, your tire pressure was minuscule under the limit. We're gonna have to take that trophy away from you now." Like, it's
yeah,
gonna Brad.
yeah. I look. I don't like this rule at all.
No, I
I'm not
think
into it. Right. I think it's silly. I get that they have their own reasons for it. Michelin and that, because it's like a safety thing or whatever. Whatever it is, it's technical, right? But they feel like they have to do this, and the people who run MotoGP agrees, right? So that's why we have this rule in place. So, and I get that, like, oh, it's not by much, but then where do you? It's like, oh, well, if the limit's
whereas,
this, if the limit's 1 and you go to 0.9, 0.99. It's like, well, that's only just under, so we're not going to penalize it. But then where do you start penalizing? So then you could just be just one under that. And it's like, well, oh, that's so close, So you have to put a limit somewhere. And if you go under that, it has to be the penalty, right? Now, my question is, why are they running it so close? Like, why are they,
Yeah.
if they're thinking themselves, if we start at this pressure with the way the temperatures are now and this happens, okay, worst case scenario, we get tucked under a group and the tire pressures are going to drop. I don't know exactly how it works, but whatever it is, whatever situation it is, then why are they not pressuring the tire for worst case scenario then? Because they are taking a risk then. So then that's where I lose sympathy, because it's like, well, you could have just safely. I know that you're going to go slower and your rider's not going to be as comfortable, because your ideal setup is at this level. But if you set it up at that level, you could drop to this level, which means you're going to be under for 2 laps of the race. So, and next year it's going to be even harsher with the punishments. It's going to be disqualifications. Are they going to be running this risk?
I just think, especially for that final round as well, if obviously it didn't happen, if Jorge Martin had beaten Pecco by enough and had won the race, and it was a very close field, and then had been given the penalty after and lost the championship after all the celebrations and everything, what a joke our sport would have become if it had been decided like that in a steward's
Yeah.
room. Like, how long was it after Fabio Giovinazzi? Like 2 hours later or something, he got given it.
Yeah.
It's like, could you imagine if the championship was decided like that? Like, what a way for fans to just go, I'm not going to watch this anymore if this is how races are going to be.
Yeah.
Rate
And that
championship.
they took that risk, and luckily it didn't come down to that.
Yeah, it's just
But
because they were
yeah.
both on.
And look, I 100%
As
agree.
well.
I think it's nonsense. I think it's complete nonsense, this thing. But when a rule is in place, why are you like flirting with the? It's the same
Yeah,
thing as if it happens on track limits. If you could win the title and he's winning the race, comes around the last corner, overtakes someone, Bagnaia is in 6th, right? So if he wins it, he wins the title. Comes out onto the edge of the ripple strip and steps over it, demote 1 position, lose the championship. I know that would be a lot quicker, like you wouldn't be celebrating and all that, but it is kind of the same thing if you drop below the thing. So yeah, I mean, I was, it is stupid, and it could have been an absolute fucking disaster, like you mentioned. But for me, and don't get me wrong, I hate track limits as well. It's my biggest gripe in all of MotoGP, motorsport, track limits. Just put fucking grass there, man.
or
But
gravel like at Valencia. They've got so much gravel around the circuit.
just don't have concrete runoff sections that are painted green that you're not allowed to touch. Then why is it there? You know.
Yeah,
Anyway, um, but yeah, if you step out of there, if that is the rule, and you break the rule, you get the punishment for it. It is silly how you know, it takes so long and all that stuff. But sorry, I've said silly, and Siri's trying to shut the hell up. Sorry, I'm on a Mac and Siri has just kicked in. Sorry, everyone. But yeah, tire pressures. How does this end, this tire pressure thing? Right, because do we have to leave, because Michelin's contracted now to like the end of 2026, I think. So are they gonna do you know anything about that? Are they trying to sort this out, or do we just, until their contract's up, is this what it's going to be like? Or are they trying to be like, look, for now we need to do the tire pressure thing until we can figure out what to do with these tires, and we can get the
well,
right tires that aren't dangerous?
I think they've been testing new tires today actually for next season, but they it was hard to hear because obviously it was a Crayfire interview in pit lane, and I was sat at a train station listening to it as well. So I was kind of had two
The
two.
sound was awful on that. I caught the end of it when it was live on
Yeah,
YouTube, and the sound was, I don't know what they were doing with the microphones, but it
I
sounded
can't
horrible.
remember what they said, but they brought in a new tire for 2024. So whether that's going to fix it, I don't think so. But then they're bringing in a new tire for 2025. So I'm assuming 2025 is going to be the time when they say that all our issues are fixed. We brought in this new carcass, and that's what they were talking about. Yeah, the new carcass is going to be made differently. So I think that might be when we're going to see the issues end. But it's just a joke. I honestly think this sport's becoming more political than it is actually on the track. Like,
Yeah.
you think that all the decisions in the past that have been made as well about just it's been like a bit close, and they're like, no, yes, it's it's just obviously, and then you have other riders taking out other people, and they're like, nah, that's fine. If your
Yeah,
tire pressure's a little bit too under,
that's a bit annoys me. Actually, like as a it's one of those things that in all sport, but like even as like a football fan as well, I always get frustrated with things that are like bad tackles, or like in this case, like shunting someone off the road, stuff that can actually result in hurting someone else. And they'll be like, eh. Or, but then like, with the football examples, like you could just be like, fuck you, ref, which hurts nobody except the ref's ego. And they'll be like, red card. Like the priorities aren't straight there. So similar like with this, where you've got rules like this that are like severely could be punishing people's races and potentially title ambitions. Um, and then stuff that is actually physically a problem on track, like hitting a guy off his bike, they're doing nothing. It's saying that I do like a bit of
yeah,
contact on the track. I do like the boys to fight hard, but obviously nothing dangerous. You know, like if you're just hitting a guy into the gravel, probably a bit much. If you're just sort of getting your elbows out a little bit, I like to see that sort of stuff, which is weird because we had that period there where just sitting a guy up apparently was a long lap penalty.
yeah, and then that's just disappeared by the end of the
Yeah, that
season.
doesn't exist anymore. I don't know when
Consistency
they
is
just decided not to do that anymore.
I don't think it was announced either. They were just like, I think originally it was if you pretty much sit someone up, you drop a couple positions. If you knock someone off, you get to do a long lap penalty. Whereas I'm going to use it again, and it's going to it's going to sound bad, but again, I think it's the most recent example. Marquez hitting off Bezecchi and
Yeah,
Martin taking out Marquez. Neither of those got announced as penalties because they can be carried over to next year as well because we've had penalties like that carried on to a new year. So
yeah,
I think
and
Vietti had to
then
do one before a Moto2 that was carried over, so they can do it. But
yeah, and then like you said, you see things like it was like Pecco and Miller, wasn't it? I can't remember if that was
yeah,
that this
correct.
season.
Yeah.
Correct was, and
Yeah.
like he did not even touch him. Like he just got up the inside of him and sat him up. I'm like, good move,
Yeah,
good
great move.
move, And they were like drop position.
Yeah.
And then,
I
like
think
you said, just at the weekends, Marquez he literally just rides into the side of Bezzecchi there, just
yeah.
rides into the side of him and shits him off into the gravel. That's it. They're like, good move, last race with Honda. May as well get your elbows out, lad. Go for it.
And then Martin wipes them out a little later on, and they're like, "Yeah,
But then again, when you look back at because that's a guy making a mistake and taking someone out, so they're probably like, oh, we're not going to punish him for that because I don't know, he didn't mean it or whatever. I don't know. But then Fabio at Assen drops the front as he's overtaking Aleix Spargaro
yeah,
and gets penalised for that.
yeah." There's a whole like 2-hour debate on stewards. And it's the fact that half of our ex riders themselves as well,
I
and they
know,
can't
you just
figure this out.
because
Is it
if
still
you
Freddie
got,
Sponsor?
I think it is, and if you got these sort of decisions from people who weren't ex riders and ex Grand Prix riders, you'd be like, go get a Grand Prix rider because they know what they're talking about. Well, obviously, it doesn't work that way.
No, because
Like, you
Freddie
just need
Spencer.
someone with a bit of common sense and
Yeah.
consistency.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole issue. But stewards, I
It's
think,
enough
have been an
to
issue.
boil the blood. But
Yeah,
um, that's stewarding. We've gone into steward. I didn't even have stewarding written down, and we've covered it, so that's good. Um,
an issue.
We have seen announced, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, new concessions to
Yeah,
help out the Japanese factories, I assume.
yeah,
So it's a new concession system which works on like a percentage of points scored or something like that. I'm trying to find it now. I'm just flicking
yeah, yeah.
through
I'm,
Twitter
I'm
trying
doing
to
the
find
same.
the actual wording of it. But it let me see if I can search something else. It is gonna
It's going to benefit.
obviously help a little bit, and it's gonna be good um for the championship, I suppose. But one thing I do think is Ducati might not be happy because not because I think they wouldn't have had an issue if it was adjusted to help maybe the like Honda, for example, who are doing so poorly. But I think under the new system, even the likes of Aprilia and KTM will get at least some kind of concession or help or advantage
Yeah.
that Ducati doesn't have. Which, whether you think that's fair or not, is another thing. But let me bring
The
up an article here.
big one for Honda and Yamaha is they get to develop their engine throughout the season, which KTM, Aprilia, and Ducati obviously won't be able to do. And that's where Yamaha have absolutely struggled since. God, how far back you got to go for that? 2017, maybe 2018. What year was it they
Hmm.
publicly apologized to their riders? Was that 2018 when they
It might have been.
because their engine was so bad? I mean, yeah, they've won a championship since then, but where have they been since that? I think that I honestly think that 2021 championship was just a one-off random event that happened because of how random MotoGP was at the time. Because Fabio and Franco have been nowhere since, and
Mm,
it's just. But they need it. They need it. Honda needs the concessions as well. Honda looked okay today as well, looking at it. So they're in dire need, and obviously they don't want Honda and Yamaha, these two giant manufacturers, especially where Suzuki have gone recently. Obviously
yeah.
Kawasaki went in the past. Those two giant Japanese brands, you don't want them throwing their toys at the pram and going, "Nah, that's it, we're going." And it's
And the
just
Japanese do get cold feet. As we see, they are the ones that are more likely to just be more conservative in the way they approach these things. They wouldn't just be like,
Suzuki have
oh,
left
we'll just
twice.
push through, you know.
But the big
Um,
thing as well they get is their riders are allowed to test at any track and at any point throughout the season. So how many? Yeah, and they get 6 test days as well, 2 aero updates throughout the season. So I know it's a
if
busy year next year, but like you can have Fabio and Luca Marini out a private test in like
Yeah, you do
Misano,
feel like this is designed to accelerate
their
the
progress.
catch up a lot quicker. Because I've got it
Yeah.
here in front of me now. Like it's separated into four different ranks: A, B, C, and D.
Mhm.
A being 80, if you have equal or more than 85% of points or whatever it is, however percentage
Yeah,
of
it's
points
just
is the
okay,
category.
yeah.
All the way down to if you have less than 35% of the points, which is the free private testing at any GP circuit. You get 6 wild cards, 9 or 10 engines per season, free engine spec. I'm assuming that's engine development, and then
Yeah.
2 aero updates. So that is that's a huge amount of a huge advantage. And for you think with that kind of advantage, if a company as big as Honda can't make most of it, then something's really wrong.
Yeah, but it's the thing of Honda's test rider. They'll use Bradle again at 6 wildcard events, and he will crash at every single event, and he won't bring in any
That's a
data
good
from the
point.
races, or he'll finish dead last like he always does. What was it at Germany this year? His home Grand Prix, and he was like 15 seconds behind the next rider in front of him. It's like, what data has he
Yeah, that's
collected
poor.
15 seconds further behind? But whereas like
It's
Cal
weird
Crutchlow got used
because
once
he,
this season for Yamaha,
yeah,
it's like
and
it's too
the
off the
Bradle thing's
end.
weird because he was at one time a good Grand Prix rider.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I I did an article a while back, when there was all this thing about Mark's leaving, who's gonna replace him, and Bradle put in his, like, his name into the hat and was like, "I could replace Mark," and I was reading it 'cause it was
you can replace shit at the moment, mate.
I think Speed Week did the interview. I was reading it, I was like, "No." I was like, "If Honda pick you to do a full-time ride, then they've gone severely wrong if they can't attract a Moto2, like, youngster, and they can only attract Stefan Bradl. But
Mm.
yeah, it will help them. Don't get me wrong, it will help them. And I think it was Paolo Ciabatti was asked earlier, maybe Davide Tardozzi was asked about what they think about these new concessions for like if Ducati are being punished. And they were saying they want to see other manufacturers at the front. They don't want it to just be a Ducati battling a Ducati because he said it's less stress for them then to try and control
No,
and
yeah.
oh Ducati championship. But I think that was a bit of a if they'd come out and said, nah, I don't like it, I think they would have got slated on social media. So a little bit of a
Yeah,
diplomatic
just a bit of
answer.
PR management there from the boss.
But still, I mean, they get 90 more test tires than Ducati do. And even when you look at KTM and Aprilia, who are in section 3, who I think get the same thing as. Oh, that's the big thing. Ducati don't get wild cards either. Like Pirro
Yeah, no,
cannot.
no wild cards. So
Yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah. We
Um,
won't see any of Michele Pirro next season apart
no,
from at test.
the guy he'll be spewing. He will
That's
be
that's
spewing.
like that's his favorite part of doing testing.
Yeah,
He loves turning up for a wild card, leading
we're
like a
still
lap.
we're still luckily we're still looking at Pedrosa wild cards. So that'll be okay.
Well, he said earlier it might be Pol Espargaro.
All right, no, I don't want to see
He said
that.
he said that him and
Come
Pol because
on.
they get 6 wild cards. So I think Danny's probably going to do like 2, and Pol will do
Yeah.
like 4. So I
So
don't think Danny's interested at all. He really
he should
like.
stop doing so fucking well when he does it. Then
Yeah, I think if he doesn't turn up to what are the test tracks this year? If he doesn't turn up to Jerez and Misano again, then I think MotoGP fans should just riot because they're like, come on, Danny. Like we want to see Danny Pedrosa. Like
that's half the
if
fun.
yeah, it's great when he just turns up and he's like, yeah, might get a podium, might not, we'll see.
Yeah,
And he just sticks it
rude.
in 4th and starts on the front row, and it's like, Danny, come back full time, lad. Like,
Yeah, I know. It actually is one of those things where it's like you'd get more value out of him at his age than you would out of a lot of these guys in the prime of their career.
yeah,
But
I'd stick him back on a KTM full time. If any of them get injured, they've got the perfect backup rider. That's all I'm saying.
exactly. Like it would just be challenging straight away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know he tests all the time, but yeah, if we don't see him at least twice next season, I think something's gone wrong there. Especially when they get 6 wildcard entries.
Yeah, but like I
Like it
said,
will help.
because you've got a sort of high profile-ish reserve rider there in Pol Espargaro, you know, who full-time rider until this year, but
They've got like
yeah, they
4 test
probably would be
riders
keen to
now.
split the duties between them two, I suppose.
They've got so many test riders though. They got Folger, they got Pol
Jeez, yeah.
Espargaro, they got Danny Pedrosa, and they want everyone always forgets they've got Mika Kallio still as well. He's just sat around
He's not doing
collecting
anything
dust.
though, is he?
He's just collecting dust at this
He's not
point, I
doing
think.
anything. He's just
Jonas
sitting at the
Folger was
factory using the coffee
yeah,
machine.
I don't know.
He's
I'm
like, "What are we
sure
up
he's
to today, lads?" They're like, "Carbon chassis." You know how it is. He's like, "Yeah, good on you. Let me know if you need me for anything."
I'm convinced he's still around. I'm gonna have to look this up. I'm convinced he's still a test rider. Yeah, it's good though. I do. What are your thoughts on the concessions? Because
I
I think it's
I think we do need it. I think we do need it because the way it was, I know obviously they do get some concessions, and this almost seemed a little bit unfair. You get so much when I'm reading it now; it's like a lot, but
yeah.
you just can't have it. Especially like it wouldn't be almost. Actually, it probably would be worse. I was about to say it wouldn't be as bad if Ducati was only like 4 bikes, but then it would be like the same guys winning all the time because there'd be none of the other manufacturers would be challenging. At least this way, all the Ducatis are beating each other. So it's still quite different at the front. So maybe it is a good thing they've got 8 bikes. But you do want to see it. It's so refreshing that KTM actually sorted their shit out a little bit this year. Um, would have
So
liked
the
for
different bits.
Aprilia to have been a touch closer. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not the same with like a Yamaha running around at the back doing shit all and a Honda running around at the back. It feels weird. I don't like it. You know, the fact that a Marquez feels like he has to go and ride for a satellite team for another manufacturer just because he can't actually ride this thing. You know,
But
it's
yeah, it looked okay actually at the test today, their new one. So maybe he did jump ship a little too quickly, I guess. But I mean, yeah, going over to a satellite Ducati, you don't have to do as much, do you? There, really, you get a bike given to you that's already got settings figured out for it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You can just sort of get on and ride. Don't have to worry about too much.
hmm.
Um, and my last one here, crypto data.
Mm,
Crypto data RNF. Gone. Now, the announcement came out like this team was being booted from the grid, the wording of it.
yeah,
And I guess that is kind of what's happened. But it's really whatever the ownership model is and the sponsors or whatever, they are not allowed in MotoGP now. So the team is still going to exist. Oliveira's got a job for next year. It's fine. We're looking for basically someone to come in and take over a Aprilia satellite team. And it's looking a little bit like it's going to be this NASCAR team, or is it IndyCar team?
it's a
I don't know.
NASCAR team. Yeah,
It's a NASCAR team. Great. Yep. Do it. I'm happy with that. American team in there or whatever. That'd be fun.
yeah. It's
Um,
owned by Pitbull as well, so that'll be.
oh, there you go.
Yeah, I've been at some of
Happy
the
days.
races. I like
So,
they do it. Yeah, it's just one of them things, isn't it? They didn't pay, and rumor is allegedly, they didn't pay quite a lot of money to Dorna crypto data or whatever they're called,
yeah.
and yeah, but apparently RNF have just left as well at the same time. They've just had enough. So
Yeah.
I know Razlan,
Razlan's
he was
is
gone. Yeah,
short but sweet. Having him in MotoGP. It's just
yeah,
this weird thing because that team looks so strong from day one. And then, like, as we went year on year, it just got a
it's
little
just got
bit,
worse.
yeah.
Yeah,
And the switching to Aprilia sort of didn't even seem to really improve their fortunes very much when it really
it didn't
should
help
have.
that didn't help their lead rider got taken out in every race that he came back to after he was injured.
Yeah,
That
that.
didn't help.
And then a lot of the time, they're not replacing him with anyone, so they got like one bike out there sometimes.
Well,
So
they put Lorenzo Savadori on it sometimes, so they might as well have just not replaced him with anyone.
yeah, he's not getting any TV time.
No, he really
It doesn't
wasn't.
help crypto data, mate.
I know they
Might
replaced
Google it
him
actually later,
twice.
see what I can get out of this company, see what if they can take all my money as well.
Yeah, wow, a lot of it.
Speaking of Aprilia, an interesting point brought up to me in a comment. I believe it was on a YouTube comment, and I forget who made the comment. Sorry to whoever the commenter was, but I was very happy to have this comment that maybe what's held Aprilia back this season is not the bike, but the riders. So when you're looking at, maybe they are still in the position they were in a year ago, but we've mentioned Vinales. We've spoken about him, the troubles that you have when you have Vinales in there. He's just like doesn't have that last little bit. Aleix can do that. Aleix does have a bit of an X factor to him, but he's getting on now. I mean, maybe I know he's coming into his best ever form, but that's only because it's the first time he's ever been on a good bike, right? So maybe if you had him at the peak of his powers when he was a little bit younger and he's got a few more years left in him, but you know what? It happens to all of us. You get to a certain age and you start to not be as good at things you used to. So maybe he's losing a little bit of time there. Maybe a peak Aleix could run a bit closer to the front at the moment. You have a guy that's more in that mold in Oliveira, who spent the whole season injured and off the bike, so couldn't get a run going. And then Raul Fernandez still, we've mentioned him as well, the issues that he's been having. So is that where, is the bike actually lost ground or, to KTM and Ducati, or have the riders lost ground? If you put Jorge Martin on that factory Aprilia, for this season, that we've just had, maybe he doesn't challenge for the title like that, but is he closer than Aleix and Maverick?
I mean, I have to say that I think they have lost ground, and I've always thought this, and it's always been strange to me with Aprilia, the way that they conduct their pre-season testing. They didn't turn up with anything new today, really. They just turned up with pretty much the bike that they raced on. I think Aleix said they turned up with a new swing arm, and it's like Aleix did 11 laps. He's currently carrying an injury as well, but he did 11 laps and was like, "Nah, done for the day." Salvadori came out, did the rest of it. Maverick did loads, but he was at the top of the timesheets because it's Vinales and he loves testing.
It's his
But
thing.
yeah, and it's just Raul Fernandez was good as well, but probably just loves testing as well. But it's like it's just the bikes that they rode on the weekend. They're not really getting any new parts today. They're not going to get their full new bike until the Sepang test, which isn't until February. So they're going to have a while. But then at that point, it's like there's a couple weeks until the start of the season. You don't really have that last minute chance to okay, they didn't like this at the test in Valencia. We'll try this instead. And they cut it close, I always think, at the start of the season. There was one year, was it the year they had Yanone in 2019, where he turned up with a brand new bike the weekend before the season started. And it's like, Yanone was literally getting his first taste of the new Aprilia a weekend before the Qatar Grand Prix. And it's like,
That's
how
mad.
close is Aprilia like this? They have a history of doing this, and I don't know if it's the money wise, maybe they don't have enough to sort of bring the new thing in that early compared to Ducati, Honda, and Yamaha. But it's just the riders as well, though. Alesia's getting on, like you said. He might retire at the end of 24. And I think it would perfectly open a seat for someone like Fabio Quartararo and have an actual person who can challenge for a title on an Aprilia. I mean, that's what Vinales was meant to be, and he's not really done much. But Aprilia need to get out the habit, and I think they sort of have recently, of making heads roll immediately when they haven't done well. Like Bautista, Bradle, Sam Lowes, they couldn't help, obviously. Bradley Smith got like two rides with them, and
Yeah.
Savadori came in. Uh, Even Savadori was meant to ride for them full time, and they were like, "Nope, we got Vinales, bye." And
Yeah.
it's like they did that mid-season. It's just
Yeah.
one of those things that Aprilia, I think, are just flawed in some ways off track as well as on track. So if they can sort their rider lineup and get someone like Fabio for 2025, then I think they'll be solid at that point. To be fair, the bike's still
Yeah.
decent, front runner.
I, 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 I tend to agree with you. I think they probably have lost something. It may only be a little bit, but it probably isn't as much as what it seems. Where
It's still
like I
1-2
said,
races, I guess.
if they do have a top rider, or if they are able to lure someone, let's say for next season or for 25, and the bike is at this level, why couldn't you go and challenge a bit more at the front, win a few more races? And because, there are guys in the field who can win things on lesser machinery. You got Fabio Quartararo, like you mentioned. Mark can do it. Um, you have to imagine that, a guy like Jorge Martin, who can really seems to be able to wrangle the bike, can sort of push a bike beyond its limits a little bit and maybe challenge. But it is interesting what you say there about them not delivering new bikes you know, till it's too
Last
late
minute.
almost.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that would be just like the way you would do it if you thought you were doing it the best way possible. There must be a reason for it. I suppose, like you said, might be a financial thing, or it might be something to do with their means and the way that the factory is and the amount of funding they get from up top. But um, it does seem weird when you're so close to the front. You'd think, look, while we're this close to the front and we're this close to being able to potentially do something, we need to either spend the money on delivering a bike nice and early so that we can really give our riders the best possible chance early in testing to sort of figure it out, or we can throw money at a top rider and see if he can make up that last 20% that we need. So, but yeah, interesting case, Aprilia, I think. Very interesting. And I thought that comment that person left, and thanks very much for that again, whoever that was really interesting because I hadn't really thought about it that much like that. And
No, it's a valid point. Yeah, it's a very
yeah.
valid point.
Um, okay, so we're talking about Aprilia. They're done. We've spoken about Vinales. Mark Marquez. He's the big story of the day today. I haven't seen the testing results, final results, because we did start here. I think we maybe started right as it was finishing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I might try to scroll here while I'm chatting to you to see if anything comes up. But Mark, I think, has gone quite quick from what
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
been able to tell. And I don't know, I didn't expect any less, to be honest. Okay, let's have a look. He's finished 4th overall. So, second fastest Ducati. Now, I never ever really give too much of a shit about testing times. I think you can get a general idea of which bike's going to be good and which one's going to be bad because they sort of want to be at the top and want to be near the bottom. But generally, in terms of this guy's going to be quicker, that guy's going to be quicker, he's going to do. I don't think you can really take much from it. You know, I dare say Pecco did not push at all today. You know, I wouldn't have thought he was on a proper. You know, I don't know where he's finished either. He could have been the one that was.
He finished 11th in the end, Pecco,
So
but
like,
what I saw, he packed it in about an hour early as well. He just
yeah,
sort of, he did test quite a bit. He was back and forth between the old bike and the new bike that they'd actually turned up with. But I think, yeah, Pecco didn't really look for time attacks very often. What it looked like, he seemed to be out there for longer than what Mark was. Mark would do sort of 7 lap intervals and then park
okay,
it back up, sit there for about half an hour, and then do another 7 laps and park it up.
which is
And
fine because like you're just getting a
yeah,
feel for the bike, right? Like, you do that. You know,
he did plenty of time.
Pecco's on a
Well,
long testing development with this bike, and he's the
yeah,
lead guy.
that's
Actually,
what
they want to
happens.
know what he thinks about every single part they put on it. He's the guy. He's not going to be, you know. So that's why I don't really look at times that much. Doesn't impress me that much. You know, if you do well in testing, you know,
Yeah, I
if
get
it's
that.
your first time on the bike or whatever, I don't really care, right? Because you don't know what everyone else is doing. But in saying that, how good is he going to be on this bike?
That's the
Is this
thing.
like title contender stuff? Like everybody's saying? I mean, I
I
can't see why it wouldn't be. I mean, but
The only thing, well, I was going to say that Grassini tends to drop back, but then went forward towards the end of this year.
hmm,
Because I was going to say when Bastianini was fighting for the championship against Pecco on that Grassini Ducati, towards the end of the year when the factory bikes had all got dialed in, Bastianini got left behind. So, but I guess that theory's been ruined.
I think Digi's a weird case because I think it was more him because he was
He,
underperforming for so long. So now he probably just come up to the level that he
mm,
should have been at. But where you
Alex
can occasionally
Marquez
podium and stuff like that and maybe get a win. But
Alex Marquez had that one great weekend in Malaysia as well towards the end of the season, but the rest of it was worse than his results had been all season. Like he sort of dropped off compared to the factory boys. So I guess there is the
mm,
argument that maybe where he's on a year-old Ducati, the bike might drop off towards the end, but will he make that difference? Is I guess the big question.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
he'll win race.
I'm still torn on this. I'm torn on this. I because the assumption is, I think, and it might be right. Um, it's the same mark, but the Honda's been obviously so bad. But is it the same mark? Because he's come back from a lot of injuries. I mean, it's not unreasonable to think that maybe he's not, if top tier mark, 100% of what mark is it just, you know, is it 90% of that guy now? You know, now if you're looking at like 2019 mark or 2018 mark or whatever, he couldn't still be doing that. He couldn't be, as the injuries he's had, a little bit older, maybe that makes a difference. I don't know. Um, um, you know, having the experience he's had with like losing confidence completely with a bike, you know, are you the same guy after all? I mean, he could still, he's a freak. So he could still just turn up and be like, all that was the problem wasn't my arm. It wasn't my fucking eyeball coming out of my head or whatever the fuck was happening to him. Or, you know, all these injuries he's had and all that. It literally was just he didn't like that bike and it was shit. I don't know. I think it's different landscape now to when before he had that crash and and completely ruined his arm. It's a different landscape now with the Ducati guys, a lot of, you know, the younger guys in there, and, you know, Pecco, I know he's got his flaws and his faults, but he generally can, like I've mentioned earlier, sort it out over a
Mhm.
weekend. That he's always there or thereabouts, you know. So I don't think it's as straightforward as people think it will be. Like, well, he's the fastest guy, and now he's on the fastest bike, which that makes him the world champion. You know, I don't know if it is like that, but I mean, it's one of those things you just can't predict. Only time's going to be able to tell us that. But I wouldn't be going off these tests. People got very excited today on Twitter when he was set and went up to second, and he was top Ducati for a while, and he's finished 4th. I'm like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, especially after watching all 7 hours of the test today. Uh, I wouldn't read too much into it because Maverick was out there. Maverick set his best time on this year's Aprilia. Brad Binder set his best time on this year's KTM. Uh, Pecco didn't push at all. Jack Miller tried about 57 new front fairings that were all coloured like a zebra. Trying to think who else was. Fabio Quartararo was testing all day. Who else out there was trying different things? Bez obviously has his new this year's Ducati spec to learn as well now. Um, so yeah, there's all these different variables when you look through that aren't that you can't really look into yet. And I'm sure Martin as well is probably going to have. He had 2 crashes today as well, by the way, in testing Martin. He absolutely ruined one of the new Ducatis. But I'm sure he's going to have to test some things now that he's proven he's a championship contender. I'm sure
Mm.
Ducati turned up with a box of parts for him today, and we're like, here you are. You're
Yeah.
testing this year. Zarco's gone.
Yeah.
Bastianini has been so inconsistent throughout the season. You now have to learn how to test a MotoGP bike and not have everything just given to you because Zarco said it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
that man now in the satellite team.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
So,
with his teammate, Frankie's new on the bike. So,
yeah,
he's just, his
he
job
can't do
today
it.
is not to probably test that many parts. It's just to like get a hang of it, mate. Like,
He was straight
so,
out on the new one as well.
oh, fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
I'm a big Frankie guy. I still think there's something there for him. I think there's something there. I want to see him do well. I do want to see him do well.
So
So, Mark, we're not sure if he's going to be the world champion or not.
he,
That's where we're at.
he will win races.
Yeah, I think if Fabio Di Giannantonio can win races, I think he can win races.
Yeah. Mark will win. How many will he win though in a 20 race season? Mark will win at least 5 Grand
Are
Prix,
you
I think.
feeling like could he be like the Martin, where he's just like I'm a sprint guy? Think he'll take to that?
I don't know. Mark's I'm trying to think how good he's been in sprints, really. He's not really been.
I thought he'd be a lot better, but again, it's hard to tell with that Honda.
And when he's been injured as well, because he's battered himself about all season. So that's a bit what he had. Oh no, he had 1, 2, 3 sprint podiums. The rest of the time he didn't really do anything in sprints. So I guess, form is there from the sprints he finished in the top
Yeah,
9. But I don't know with Mark. It's going to be one of those where, because obviously we've had in the past Rossi go to Ducati and the bike was awful at the time. Rossi go to
hmm
Yamaha and the bike was awful at the time. And he turned around the Yamaha. But then there's also the thing that Mark could go to this bike that seemed to be great, look really good at the first test, and then lose his confidence very early on with a crash or something, and a big crash on a Ducati. But I don't think Mark will. Mark's a peculiar one for me. As
yeah.
much
I honestly don't know what to expect. I'm
I,
not fully
it could
on
go either
board with
way.
this. Like he's going to be world champion, but I also could not rule it out.
I think there is the chance that he will win his 9th title, but I don't think it'll be as comfortable as everyone else is making out. I
Yeah,
think either Ducati will get in the way themselves because they've made it pretty clear that they don't like Mark, um, or Pecco, Martin, Digi, Bez. Bez doesn't like him now, so there's going to be that Ducati
yeah.
rivalry going on there. So you've got all of
And
those coming
I do think that when push comes to shove, when you're getting into races like that, Mark's back at the front on the same bike as a lot of these young guys, these Italians and stuff like that,
on. Oh yeah,
idolizing Rossi and coming through the system with his teams and stuff. I think they'll probably throw the odd dangerous move in on him.
the question I
They
have
don't want they won't want to make it easy for him.
the question I have about Mark, especially Grassini, will Alex Marquez finally, finally grow a pair and actually put an overtake on his brother instead of just sitting behind him for a whole race?
No,
Because it started annoying me all season
he
long.
won't do that.
Mark will be like 7th and Alex will be 8th. And you'll be like, right, Alex is right behind him. He'll have him by the end of this lap. And then by the end of the race, he's still sat there. And you're like, Alex, what's going on? You're holding up about
He's
5 riders.
fragile, that guy though. You can't do anything that might because
I
if
know.
he crashes a lot and he gets injured a lot. You don't want to do that to your brother, do you?
I've been watching a few races.
Accidentally lose the front as you go up the inside of him.
I'm like, Alex, you're alongside him. Make the overtake. And he just rolls out. And it's like, oh, just stop sitting behind him and actually attack him. Like, don't. It just doesn't want to upset his big brother and his dad.
What did you make of his season, Alex Marquez on a Ducati?
I think it was pretty good. What did you think of it? Because I know you'd written him off before the
I'm
season.
not. I've never been on board with the Alex Marquez. Everyone was like, Alex Marquez is going to be. I know he did well. Like, obviously, he did well. But I said at the start of the season he would be the 7th best Ducati. He's ended up the 6th best Ducati, only just finishing ahead of Digi in the end. And the only reason he wasn't the 7th best Ducati is because Bastianini missed the start of the season and then really didn't get going once he come back on. But that's not on ability, right? He's better than that. So,
we think he is.
I mean, I'm not saying I was right because technically I wasn't, but I was kind of right. And then if you ask anyone in these last like 3 rounds, would you take Digi or Alex Marquez? People are like all over the Digi thing now, right? So I still think, if you look at the 8 Dukes on there next year, who have we got? Does he end up 7th best again? Like, I just don't know where.
I think he might be. He could end up being 8th best if Morbidelli can get the hang of it.
That's what I mean.
Rock bottom if Digi carries on his form.
Because now Digi looks like he's definitely better than him, right?
And if Bastianini sorts himself out, I honestly could see Alex Marquez being the worst Ducati by the end of next year. Because I used to say this.
I used to say this when he was at Honda. That I always preferred Taka. I don't know that, like, I'm just a big Nakagami fan. I don't know why, but Nakagami, 2nd best Honda this year again. But
I kept seeing you putting things like that on Twitter. Yeah,
he's top 2nd best. The numbers don't lie.
Finished, yeah.
But
he was top Honda on the weekend.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
12th. He was top Honda.
The guy just finishes races, which apparently we keep getting told is the hardest thing in the world to do. But yeah, he does it every week, and no one rates him.
Yeah, Taka, that's actually really surprising. He only had 1 DNF all season in the main Grand Prix.
Yeah, so why can't the others do it? That's the bit I don't understand.
Why did he get that DNF as well? If I look at this,
it's like someone told him that the point of racing is to finish the race at the fastest possible time. Finish the race at the fastest possible time. And he went, okay, that's my job then. That's what you're paying me for. That's what I'm going to do. It's not go quicker than that, crash, and don't finish any races.
Yeah, you used to just chuck it down the road all the time.
No, he's figured it out.
Just
someone went, you're supposed to finish the race, right? It's like, well, they're not doing it. It's like, well, you're going to, okay? And you can stay in this team forever if you just keep doing that.
He beat Rins as well, and Rins won a race. He may have beaten by 2 points, but yeah, Mark only. Oh, I say Mark only. Mark beat him by 40 points.
40 points or something, yeah.
Bang on 40,
so,
yeah. Good on him. Actually got some, fair
and
play.
That's the story of why I like Nakagami better than Marquez.
It's weird that Taka is going to be their main rider for next season because he's the one with the most experience on that bike. And there was a time where I thought Taka was going to be the only one who was still the same rider on that bike because I thought Mir's going to walk as well. They're going to have to bring 2 people into Repsol, Zarco into LCR, and Taka's going to do all the testing.
Yeah, because he's going to be the only one that's ridden it before.
Yeah, I don't think he got the new stuff today, actually. That's a shame. I think all the others got it.
That's right, because Mir's got a year on it, so it's fine. He can do it all.
Marini doesn't really know what to expect, so he got all the new stuff as well.
Yeah, you may as well just give him everything new. You don't want him touching that old shit.
Oh no, the first bike he went out on was fully carbon, just carbon black. So it was like, okay, that's completely.
Yeah, it's a new bike.
Taka came out on his LCR and a Mitsu sponsored bike, and it's like, okay, Taka's on last year's bike again.
Poor Taka.
This is how they repay him.
Well, it is interesting that we're talking about him though, because I'll link this into one of the riders' names I had written down was Ayagura, right? So for like 2 years now, it's been like, do you want the job, Because we'll just shift Naka out. He can become a test rider, and you've got the job. And I don't know if this is the conversation that's been happening, obviously behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I'm not there, but that's what you sort of hear. That's what's reported. It's like they just want to replace Nakagami with Ayagura. And Ayagura is sort of like, not ready, sort of. There's the report there that he kind of turned it down because it's so shit. And he's like, I'm
Yeah.
not going into that underperforming for a year, then you ship me off because I'm shit. He doesn't want to touch the bike in that situation. But now he has had a poor season. I know he had an injury at the start, but never really got going again after that. He's had a couple of good results here and there. And if he does that again, then where is he in line for that Honda?
He's moved teams. He's leaving the Honda bracket.
But is he? Well, is he? Is it one of those things where he's obviously gone off to whatever team who's going to be running Bosco-Skuro's chassis this year, right? So, hopefully that works out for him. But is that still not the plan that he's in line? The Honda still not have him in the pipeline to step in there?
I don't think so, because I think the Idemitsu was the Honda's team in Moto2. It was their promotion line, and I think he's sort of just gone, nah, I don't want anything to do with your bike. And they've turned around, from what I've heard, it's maybe not true. He's just turned around or Honda have turned around and gone, well, if you're never going to ride for us, see you later, mate. You're off to, you're not going to ride for our Moto2 team because you're no longer one of our junior riders. Like, you keep turning it down. I can't blame him. Bosco Scuro and Speed Up produce good riders. They've produced Aldier. Now, who else? They produced Sam Lowe's. He got a break into MotoGP because of them in the past. He was with them. And it's just like, it's fair enough. I wouldn't want to ride that Honda if I was Ayagura. Even though I'm Japanese, I wouldn't want to be on it. Like, they could pay me all the money in the world, but I'm going to have 1 year on it. I'm going to be really bad, and they're going to sack me off. Because they wanted to sign Zarco to represent Honda for 1 year. And he's like, no, I'm not taking that, because you'll just sack me off after a year for a rookie. And then they wanted to sign a Moto2 rider for 1 year. And they're all just like, no. Like, it's like 2 years or nothing. Like,
yeah. And this is where I'm kind of torn on Agura, because it's like, well, because he didn't take that opportunity. Because at the end of the day, it is an opportunity to ride in MotoGP. At the end of the day, as bad as it is, has he missed the boat now? Because if he has another poor season, it's not just the Honda that's not going to be like, well, you didn't want our bike, so no one's going to look at him. There are other talents coming through there now. Fermin Aldigo obviously jumps out at you. And then the succession of guys that are going to improve as they got, they've had a year in Moto2 now. You're looking at your Sergio Garcias and things like that. You have to imagine they're in the pipeline to make their way into MotoGP one day. So has he missed the boat? Did he need to just take that opportunity and become the Nakagami of Honda and be like, well, as long as I just keep doing okay, they'll keep me around?
The only way I could see it getting there is if Yamaha bring in a satellite team and need to make the manufacturer happy by bringing in a Japanese rider. So I could see him coming in through that way, because Yamaha want a satellite team. So would I be good for sponsorship wise for that team? Attract the Japanese side of it, which is, let's be honest, the only reason Nakagami's still in MotoGP at this point, because they're keeping that Idemitsu sponsorship firmly stapled to his bike. It's just, that's the only way I see it now. I don't think Ducati won't look at him, because you've got the Moto3 lads coming up as well. And Ducati tend to like the Spaniards and the Italians. Aprilia like the Spaniards and the Italians. KTM
has their
they like
long
everyone.
line of riders coming through.
Yeah, so I think Yamaha in a satellite team, maybe a very poor satellite team, is probably his only way to get up there now at this point. And
maybe he should have just been grateful and taken his shit job at Honda and just rode around at the back like a dickhead.
I had Ayagura down as a Moto2 champion for this year, so
I remember.
Yeah, I am disappointed on that front.
Look, there's no reason. The flip side of this is that he doesn't have a bad season next year. He goes back to his best. He's challenging for the title again and makes himself an attractive prospect to MotoGP teams. But it's a little bit harder to see that.
Nah, I reckon it'll happen. He'll get on a Ducati and he'll storm MotoGP. Maybe.
Yeah, well, as much as we'd like to see that. It'd be weird if a Japanese rider actually finally did do well in MotoGP and it wasn't on a Japanese bike. That'd be so strange.
That would be strange. Can't remember the last Japanese rider who didn't ride a Japanese bike in MotoGP. I can't think of any, because I'm thinking even like Daijiro Kato was on Honda.
Yeah, it was on a Honda. Toru Okawa was a Honda.
Nakano was on a Honda, and then
Nakano was on a Kawasaki.
And he did a Yamaha as well. He was Tech 3, yeah. I can't think of any.
Never set foot on a European bike, Shinya Nakano. Did he not? I'm trying to think now. Yeah, I think he always ended up in like satellite teams, but they were always Well, they were the dominant teams at the time as well, weren't they? Like
I'm
your Honda and Yamaha satellite teams were always great.
oh no, because even there was a Suzuki rider who did a one-off race as well, and they're Japanese. I honestly can't think of any. I'm looking through a list of names here, and none are. Noriyuki Haga. That might be the last one because he was a
God, when was
Aprilia.
that?
Was he a Aprilia? Yeah, he did. He did
Yeah,
one
he was
year
in it for
Aprilia in 2003.
2003. Yeah,
Yeah, 2003. Yeah, he
jeez,
might
with
be the.
Colin Edwards.
Yeah, he might be the last one to have done it, and it was the year I
Brilliant.
was born. So
20
that was a.
years. That's been
There must
right.
have been one as a wild card or something in there.
No, because they don't. Well, they don't test for any other for European manufacturers.
They just show up for Japanese manufacturers, and that's it.
Quality. Well, I hope now that Iagura ends up on a Ducati and wins a world championship.
Ah,
That'd be
anything's better
great.
than what Haga did on Aprilia.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a good Aprilia back then. So,
No.
um, and yeah, anyone you want to mention? I've run out of names. I've spoken about everyone I've got written down. We're in Moto
Uh,
2.
I was to
Tell
say,
us
do you
what's
want me to stick?
happening at. Tell us what's happening at OnlyFans Racing. OnlyFans Racing.
Well, they're keeping a sponsorship. That's about the one good thing that's staying with them.
Of course.
Um, they've sacked 2 riders throughout the season. Not as many as Forward Racing have. They've sacked about 5 throughout the season, but they actually signed a rider they sacked as a replacement rider for the rider who came in for them. So that was I think it was a Scridge. He got sacked. Then their replacement rider got injured for who replaced the Scridge. So then the Scridge came back in to replace the guy who replaced him. That was a mess. Forward Racing was a mess. But American racing team, and it's not the team, it's the owners. Because I like John Hopkins. He's been quality as a media
Well,
person for
from
them all
what
year.
I've heard, this decision had nothing to do with him as well.
Yeah, it's just from the very top. I can't remember his name. It's like Iton or something. I think his name is American.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, the media people for them are great as well. Great people. It's just I don't get the point. When I saw Joe Roberts was coming in for Sean Denton Kelly at the end of the year, I thought that's great. Joe Roberts back to American Racing Team, where he made his name in Moto2. Really, he'll be great teammate for Skinner. And then Marcos Ramirez comes in and actually does really well. The best I've ever seen Marcos Ramirez do in Moto2. And now Skinner's gone out of what was a 2-year deal. And when I saw that announcement, I think the whole of British MotoGP fans and British Superbike fans went mental when they saw that announcement that Skinner was gone after a year. Like they hadn't even given the man a full year yet, and they just gone, do you know what? Bye. And it's like I I get it, I get it. You might have pressure from sponsorships, you might have that side of it, but the lad had barely known any of the tracks. He'd barely been on the bike. He'd missed a few races because he got taken out by Jeremy Alcoba at Mugello, and he hurt him. And he scored points once this season. And I get that's not a great return, but he was slowly chipping away at it. Made decent progress throughout the year. And you look at his results, and you can see when was it Malaysia? Was it time he got told he wasn't going to be riding for them next season? I think. And after that, his results were bad again. And it's almost like he just lost confidence and lost faith and was just like, do you know what? If I'm not here next year, don't really care. And there's talks he's going to be in BSB in a good bike, which is cool and that, but that's the MotoGP dream gone. And it's just, I think it's poor. I think it's very poor from American racing team. And it's happened a lot this year, in the past couple of years, where contracts have just meant nothing, where people would just be like, we'll just rip it up, get rid of a rider, or a rider will rip it up and move away from where they are. And I don't think Skinner would have even been paid out of his contract because I don't know if he was being paid. Half the time, Moto2 riders aren't actually getting any money for racing there, especially in a lower team like American Racing Team. So I don't know. I just think it's poor. I think it's poor that they didn't honour his 2-year deal. He was a rookie. He was barely given a chance, and now he has the choice of the European route with Moto2, where he's going to have to pay a lot of money with sponsors to get into, or he goes back to BSB and maybe hopes to one day get to World Superbikes. But for what is such a talented young rider and is very clear. If you've watched him in British Supersport, where he won the championship in only his second year, uh, British Superbikes, he was quality. He was okay in Moto3 Junior Championship. He was decent in Red Bull Rookies. He finished sixth in a very competitive year, and they've given him 1 year on a Moto2 bike and sacked him off. So it's just sick. I think
The
in
bit
in my
that doesn't sit well with me, is well, and like you said, you do see it a lot now, is that the contracts aren't worth anything. There's no point having them, you know, because you can just stop it at any time. So what's the point of it? What have you signed
yeah,
for? Um, to play devil's advocate, the results weren't quite there. But again, he's not come through Moto3 or anything like that. He doesn't ride those circuits, like you mentioned.
he
So
hasn't
in
rode
that
them
sense, from a
for years.
pure sporting and development aspect, I do think he was worth another year.
Mm.
Absolutely. Because not everyone's going to be able to go on there and just do it straight away first year. Some guys build into these sort of things. And when there is a baseline of talent there, it's like, well, what could have happened? Yeah, it's hard because what hasn't done him any favors as well is the fact that, like you said, is it Gonzalez that's gone on there has actually done really well.
Yeah, Ramirez. Yeah,
Ramirez, sorry,
yeah,
done quite well. So it's like, you know, and they definitely want to have Joe Roberts on there because he's all right, and then he's American as
he's
well,
American.
so he's
Yeah,
going to go there. So what? How ruthless should they be? Um, yeah, I don't mind if teams go, look, we don't think he's good enough, but the circumstance of this one were a little bit dodgy. It was a little bit dodgy, and like I said, it doesn't. That's the bit that I don't like. But yeah,
it was the
these
the thing as well with Sean Den Kelly earlier on in the season as well. The way that they dealt with that is because he got sacked as well because he was injured. He then got declared fit, but the American racing team were like, "No, no, 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 you're not fit enough. You're not fit enough," and they just kept delaying it. And then eventually they just were like, "No, you've breached your contract. You're done." And it's like, you weren't letting him ride. How's he
yeah
breached his contract?
yeah
But it's a bit shady. But I get it. We want to be in the American market because look how Formula One are doing because of being in there.
mm,
But I just don't think MotoGP's cracked America since they left Laguna Seca. I think they had cracked it in Laguna Seca because you had Tom Cruise and all of that turning up, and now we're at Kota and it's just sort of dropped out, and now we're trying to crack that market again. It's just
yeah
not going anywhere. We don't have an American in MotoGP, don't have a Brit in MotoGP, and those two markets are falling out of love with bike racing. It's as simple as that,
yeah
really. But yeah, it's just
yeah
it's a bit poor. Yeah, it's a yeah. To keep my rant shorter than it will probably be if I went fully in on it. Yeah, it's poor on that point on their half.
yeah. I do agree. I don't like the idea of contracts being just scrapped. Like, why have it the thing? You may as well have the guy on a race contract then.
Yeah,
So what's the point? But yeah, it's a shame. Hopefully, he does well for himself.
yeah. He's a
'Cause,
nice kid as well, so I hope he does.
um, was there anyone else for you?
Um, I will briefly say about Jake Dixon. I thought he did well this season. Uh,
Nah, rubbish, mate.
I knew you'd say that. Your
He
your
was all right.
personal thoughts with Jake, and what his
It's not me
personal
that doesn't like him.
yeah, so it doesn't like you, yeah. But no, yeah, he was okay this year. I thought he did well. Not well enough to get a MotoGP ride, like he thought he was going to do, or well enough to win the title, like he also thought he was going to do. For Sam did okay at Jerez. Jerez was a very good ride from Sam. It was classic Sam
hmm
Lowe's. Seeing him go is sad from a British point of view. And the last thing on a British point of view that I wanted to touch on was Scott Ogden and Josh Watley. I don't really know what Josh looked better towards the end of the season.
mm
Had a massive injury in Qatar, but Scott, he was so good in testing. It was there. He was great. He was top in the preseason testing, and again, it's the thing of don't read into testing. Him and Riccardo Rossi were the men going into this season, and Scott Ogden finished 23rd and Riccardo Rossi finished 14th. And yeah, it's just the British side of things. It's bleak unless you're a Jake Dixon fan at the moment. So yeah, I guess we've got that, and neither of them tested. Neither of the Moto3 boys tested this week because they're injured. Um, so yeah, on the British side, it's not been a great end to the season, but I guess sticking with Moto3 and riders that have come a long way. David Alonso is one for the future. He looked really good this season. I was gonna say Colombian, but he's pretty much Spanish. But yeah, rides
Hmm.
under a Colombian flag. Colin Vaya looked really good as well. One
I
that
really like this kid.
I'd never heard of him before the season. I
I
had
really
no
like
clue
this kid.
who he was. Came in and I was like, oh, cool, a Dutch rider in Moto3. He'll be gone within a year or two. And
He's been
I really
fantastic.
like him. I think he's quality. I
And you know what? Next year, I think obviously there are still guys in there like your Olgados and things like that. But I think
yeah,
next year, if we get like an Alonso versus Via title fight, I'm gonna be
even a
stoked with that.
Rueda in there for the championship fight
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
He's quality. Yeah, there's a few. Obviously, you got Kaito Toba, who's still there for his like 50th year.
He's not,
Um,
is he?
Kaito Toba's staying around. Yeah,
Like,
Fanati's gone though. Finally, that's the
he's
end of
not.
Fanati.
He
I think
actually
that's
saw
it.
out the full season. How about that?
I think Fanati has reached his age capacity for
Yeah,
Moto
he
3.
can't. He's not allowed. Yeah.
That's him done. So, and he's
Jesus.
not on the provisional grid for Moto 2 next year. So,
He'll
Fanati's
worm
gone.
his way in there. Don't you worry about Romano. He'll worm his way in.
No,
He
I
always
think
does. He's never leaving that paddock.
there's some good quality coming through. I like Joel Kelso as well. I think he got done dirty by Bristol sagging him, and then Bristol have now collapsed. So that's even funnier, I think.
Yeah.
Uh,
He has picked up a ride for next season, thankfully.
yeah, where's he off to next season?
I
Actually,
actually don't even know, but he was testing today, and he does have a ride for the season.
yeah,
So
I
that got
can't remember
sorted not long after he sort of got announced that he was getting shafted. But
where is he off to? Trying to find out. I can't see anywhere where he's off to. Where am I even looking? Joel Kelso, 2024. Sure.
Joel just looks
Yeah.
a little bit timid for me in the pack battles. That's all it is. I think he's got the
Ah,
pace.
he's off to where David Munoz has been riding this year.
Ah, okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
not a bad team actually. To be fair, I'd take that if I was Joel.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely,
just,
definitely.
yeah, it's not an awful place to be. I don't know who his teammate is. If it's David Munoz, then I'd worry. But it's David Munoz. Right. So he's replaced Anna Carrasco in that team. Okay. Yeah, that's a decent ride for him actually. On
Yeah, that'll be
Australia.
good for it. Look, I no doubt about his speed for me, but it's just he gets in these battles, and it's like a very It's the first time I actually heard him mention it. I was watching the broadcast. First time I've heard him mention um that Kelso in this sort of pass or be passed type thing. I think it was Neil Hodgson was saying it or someone, and he was like, I think it was in reference to Kelso. It's like if you don't make the move, someone's going to make the move on you. And that's something I say about Kelso. I've had this
Mhm.
conversation like with my dad and been like, because we obviously talk about the Australians and stuff, and be like,
Yeah,
why is he ending up like 15th and he's starting on like the front row? And it's because when he gets in those pack situations, he'll sort of look to just like he'll be like sixth or something, right? He'll just be sitting behind the guy in fifth. But then the guy in seventh is just like, bang, got ya, shaft you
yeah,
out wide, offline,
and then
and then he's like,
yeah,
all right, I'll settle in behind this guy. And then the next guy, next corner comes in and goes, bang, see you later. And they're all just doing it to each other. And Joel doesn't have that. He doesn't just punch one up the inside of someone every now and then, which the other ones do, even when it's not on. Like in Moto3, they just go for it. And
Mm.
that's why I think if you're getting into maybe as he goes up if he goes up the classes, maybe where it's a little bit more, don't know what the word is, tame, I guess. Where they don't do that so much, where they do settle in behind one another a little bit more and just, look to just sit in behind someone and, they don't do so many stupid moves or whatever, which is, I'm not against. I'm very happy with all the stupid moves. It's great.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, he doesn't seem to have that like, when you mentioned it was like pass or be passed, it's like he
Yeah,
doesn't have that attitude, he just gets passed. So he ends up qualifying amazingly because he's so quick. And then as the race goes on, he'll slip to the back slowly of that lead group as they one by one just put moves in on him, and he just never gives one back. And then he ends up at the back of the lead group. But
he might learn something from Munoz, I guess, next year,
Yeah.
being his teammate. Just send it anywhere and everywhere that's
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, that's the only, when I watch him, and I obviously keep a really close eye on him being an Australian, and I'm always looking for him on the timing sheets and all that. And he usually does lap by lap. He'll just drop a position, And I don't think it's a speed thing, and I don't think it's to do with his pace. I think it's just because maybe it's not his thing to be in that chaotic situation.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't like that, but that is the nature of it. He's gonna have to start doing it because he could have a really good tilt at it and have a really good season and get some really good results if he starts getting a bit more aggressive. But yeah,
I mean, you've got two
um,
more Aussies in the Grand Prix paddock next year. Senna Agius
yeah,
is coming into Husqvarna. Is he going
yeah, I
into
think
that?
yeah, it is, and he actually had a decent day today as well. I think on the
Yeah.
timesheets as
And
well. So or
you've
yesterday even.
got Jacob, what's his name? Jacob Ralston, I think, coming into Moto3 and Tech3. So that's another Aussie on the grid. I've not heard of him before. I'm guessing he's
No,
come from
neither
a
have I.
European.
So there you go.
Guessing he's come European route. But yeah, it's two more Aussies for you. Whereas I've got two less Brits to watch. So that's
Yes.
fun.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned it's a little bit grim for the British and all that. Like
Yeah, we
sometimes you
got.
just
To
don't,
be fair, there's quite a few Aussies coming through at the moment. To be fair, looking at it.
we're usually
So
not bad at least getting someone in there.
yeah,
But
always snake one in somewhere.
that's it. Just send
I
them
don't know
off to
where.
Europe. Off you go, lad. Do your best.
Yeah, Jacob Ralston finished 5th in Red Bull rookies this year, so he's coming in with pedigree, I guess. So
Mm.
yeah,
I
as
think
an
it is.
Aussie.
It was when you mentioned him earlier, Scott Ogden. Strangely, didn't quite make the step this year. I
Yeah,
actually thought he would be. Well, I thought
I
by the end of the season, him and Kelso would be in the same position. And I don't mean where Ogden is. I mean where Kelso is in terms of getting yourself the odd front row. Racing around in the league group a bit. I did expect him to be more around there, but
yeah. The
hasn't
only
quite
place
happened.
to was Argentina in the wet, but no, I guess
Hmm.
it's just one of them things, isn't it? Kelso got a podium this year though, so that's another
Yeah,
at the Australian Grand Prix, wasn't
yeah,
it
it
as
was at
well?
Phillip Island. Yeah,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
difficult conditions, but
that's a class one to have as well, though.
yep.
Well,
Uh,
it's looking
Yeah,
better for you.
and we've covered quite a lot. We're an hour and 40 minutes in, and we haven't
I
even
just
gone over our results from our season predictions. So, shall we
do
get
we
into that now?
yeah, do we have to look at
Yeah, we
the
might have to.
oh,
We might
okay.
have to. Okay.
Right.
Now, our first category in our season predictions, and anyone who wants to go and watch that, I'll chuck a little thingy up in the corner. I don't know which side it goes on. You can go watch that, and if you want, and see how we came to these decisions, and you can hear the explanations, which at the time I promised made absolute perfect sense,
Yeah.
and now look a little bit ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
okay. The first one was the Sprint King. The Sprint King. Who was going to win the most sprint races over the course of the season? I went for Marc Marquez. I
Mhm.
was incorrect. You went
Mhm.
for Jorge Martin. Ding, ding, ding. That's a point
It
to
is
Luke.
indeed.
+1. Okay, so it's 1-0.
That's a good point.
Now, here's one, could be contentious, this one. The
Mhm.
surprise winner. You picked Alex Marquez,
Yeah.
who did not win a Grand Prix,
Yeah.
but did he win a sprint? I think he won 2,
Two.
maybe.
You want- Yeah.
Won 2 sprints. Did we specify at the time if it was going to be a Grand Prix or a sprint that they had to win?
I have written down. I'll be honest first. I have written down on the notes a surprise Grand Prix winner brackets Sunday.
Okay,
So
so no point,
no point.
but almost. Now,
Have you put out Zeki? That's right.
I picked Bez. You at the time mentioned that you didn't think that would be a surprise,
No.
and it turns out you were right. So I'm willing here
Oh.
to perhaps forego my point because I don't know why it turns out that I must have been the only one that thought that Bez winning would be a surprise because he's ended up being incredible.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Is it valid at the start of the season for me to have thought that would be a surprise?
I guess the only way I'm gonna I'll decide. I'll look at last year's and then I'll think where Bez was compared to this year, and if it is a surprise, he's made that jump.
Okay, that's a good idea, actually. Let's have a
He
look.
was 14th at the end of last season. He was behind Luca. We're seeing what other Ducati. Did he beat any Ducatis? He beat Digi. That was the only Ducati he ended up being
Right.
last season. I guess
So
you
I'm having a
could
look at it now
say it
as
was a
well.
bit of a surprise. He did get a podium last season, but a podium
So
was
one
only
podium. He's finished. Did he finish behind Marini?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, by 9 points. He finished behind Marini last
Okay.
season.
I think
Marini
that's
was
why I thought it would be surprising if he won a race.
okay.
I don't know.
Marini
What do you
was
think?
like though. I'm willing to let you take it because you put it down.
Thank you.
I'll be a fair sport
One,
and let you.
one all. We're 1-1 after
Yeah, I can
two
completely.
questions.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse for me.
Okay. Now the number 3 was the race winners, where we name the amount of riders or each individual rider that we think is going to win a race for the season. For everyone you get right, you get a point. For everyone you get wrong, you lose a point. I picked 6 riders. I had Bezzecchi, so that's +1.
Yep.
I had Pecco Bagnaia, +1.
Yeah.
I had Enea Bastianini, +1. I had Marc Marquez, -1. I had Fabio Quartararo, -1. And I had Jorge Martin, +1, leaving me at a +2. So I'm on 3 points.
Yep.
You had Enea Bastianini, +1.
Yep.
Pecco Bagnaia, +1. Fabio Quartararo, -1.
Yeah.
Marc Marquez, -1. Alex Marquez, -1. Marco Bezzecchi, +1. Maverick Vinales, -1. Alicia Spargaro, +1. And Jorge Martin, +1, leaving you at +1 for that category,
No, I
putting
did
you
well
on
there.
2. So
No.
it's 3-2 to me. Okay. Now it gets real lean here, I'll be honest. It gets real lean for quite a few questions. Okay. Number 4 was the teammate killer. So the rider that will finish by the most amount of points ahead of his teammate. And which team would it be? I said it would be the factory Yamaha team, with Fabio Quartararo outscoring Morbidelli by the most amount of points. That didn't happen. Fabio outscored Morbidelli by 70 points. You picked Grassini with your man Alex Marquez, who everyone really loves, outscoring Digi by the most amount of points. That one was so close. That's only ended up a 26-point gap. So there was just over a race win in that one. The actual team with the biggest points gap.
I don't know. Can I guess who I think it is? I haven't worked any of this out. I just knew it wasn't Grassini. Is it Repsol Honda with Mark and Mia? Is that the biggest,
No.
or is it Tech 3? That's my other thought.
No.
Ooh,
This
who
is
is it?
amazing. It's the factory Ducati team.
Oh, it is,
Francesco
isn't it?
Bagnaia scored 467 points, and Enea Bastianini scored 84. That's a 383 point gap. So the only team that it could possibly have been where a rider scored more than 383 points was Jorge Martin. So it would have needed Johann Zarco to score, well, less points than 300, whatever. But yeah, it could have only possibly been, with that points gap being so big, it could have possibly, the only other possible team it could have been was Pramac, because there was only one rider who scored more than that points gap, and that was Martin.
That's awful. I didn't realize it was that bad with Bastianini.
Yeah.
That's
when
poor.
I looked at it today to get the result, I was like, oh my God. I still thought it was going to be one of the other ones.
I thought it was the two I had in my mind was Repsol Honda or Tech 3 because Paul was out for like 3/4 of the year and crashed for the rest of it. And
Mir didn't finish a race,
crashed.
pretty much.
Yeah. Mir crashed all year. So
but then Bastianini didn't
do anything.
He won that one race, and other than that, he barely scored a point.
Oh my God. Bastianini.
It's
that
crazy,
was a team
isn't it?
that we wouldn't allow in Teams Championship as well because we were so certain they were going to win it.
And we'll get into that. Okay, we go to the next one is the wooden spoon. The full-time rider with the least amount of points. Do you remember who you went for?
Well, I have written down Augusto Fernandez, but I think I said Taka in the end. I'm not sure.
No, you ended up at Augusto Fernandez.
Okay.
And so did I.
Oh,
so did
nice.
We both just, I think the reasoning we gave at the time was that rookie on the
Only
Tech
rookie.
3
Yeah.
KTM is just bound to fail. The actual last place full-time rider was his teammate, Pol Espargaro.
Yeah.
Now, injuries and stuff, but, he only scored 15 points for the season. The next, second last in the championship for the full-time riders was Joan Mir on a Repsol Honda. 26 points.
It's bad when Danny Pedrosa has beaten both of these after just
Yeah, he has
riding
done.
twice. Yeah.
He has done. He scored 32 points, Danny Pedrosa.
That's poor.
Now, under that, it's all just the wild cards. So, yep, they barely scored, which makes sense. Most of them didn't. And Augusto Fernandez has actually done okay. He scored 71 points. He's beaten Taka Nakagami, Alex Rins, Raul Fernandez, and obviously Joan Mir and Pol Espargaro. And he's finished 5 points behind Miguel Oliveira. So he's actually done okay. He's had a decent season. He's almost scored as many points as Enea Bastianini.
That is,
so that's no more points again for us.
Great.
So it's still 3-2.
I don't think that's changing.
The next one is we ended up, it was supposed to be which team will win the team's championship, but because we both 100% were guaranteed that it was going to be the factory Ducati team, which has ended up winning another category, we said, all right, who's going to come second? And then we both picked Pramac. Now, Pramac's ended up winning the team's championship. So I don't know if you want to get a point each for that, but technically we're not correct. Should we get a point each?
Yeah.
No, fuck it. We're taking a point each.
We
you know what? We're taking that. Bastianini's ruined that for us. So that means it's 4-3.
Great. It's going well.
Category number 7. Moto3 world champion. Sorry, Moto3 world champion. We both went the same on this.
Oh, okay.
It was Ayumu Sasaki we both picked. And we almost got it.
Yeah.
We almost got it.
If I picked him either. I don't know who I thought I picked, but I didn't think I picked Sasaki.
You were tossing up between Sasaki and Jaume Masia.
Oh, really?
And you went for Sasaki. Okay. Moto2 world champion. Do you remember who you picked for this one?
Yep, I do. I went Japanese.
You've selected future Ducati world champion, Ayagura.
Yeah.
He's had a stinker in the end. I picked Pedro Acosta, so I'm on 5 points. Now, and you're on 3.
Great. It's going well.
So there's 2 left and there's 2 points that you can tie and we can go to some sort of tie-break situation. Number 9 was MotoGP world champion. Now, we've both picked the same here, which means you can't take it to a tie-break.
Yeah,
so we both picked Pecco. We were both right. We both resisted the temptation to pick Bastianini in the end.
Oh, thank God.
So I've gone to 6 points. You've gone to 4. With 1 still to play, you can bring it to within a point. But let's have a look. The last one was which world champion of the 3 world champions would score the most points? Now, in MotoGP, we're only taking Sunday points. We're not including sprints because otherwise they would comfortably win that. So in terms of Grand Prix points for the season on a Sunday, we picked Ayumu Sasaki. So would Ayumu Sasaki, Ayagura, or Pecco score the more points? You picked Pecco.
Yeah.
Out of my choices of Sasaki, Pedro, and Pecco, I picked Pedro to score more points than Pecco. Right. Pecco Bagnaia on Sundays in Grand Prix scored 327 points. Pedro Acosta scored 332.5. So I've got that one as well.
Yeah.
And with you generously letting me have the Bezzecchi one, I've gone to 7 points.
Yeah.
Out of 10 categories. That's probably my best ever year. That is my best ever year. You finished on 4, which is not bad. I wouldn't have thought.
I'm fairly sure
it was
as well.
So bad there, though, when we went from number 4, which was the teammate killer, all the way to Moto3 world champion. We really didn't score a point. We gave ourselves the Pramac point, but we really didn't score for 4 questions. So
I just remember when you asked me on to do this, you're like, "Oh yeah, bring some sort of like actual sense to it," and then you've gone and beaten me by like 3 points. So
I
you
make the
know,
categories, mate. I can rig it.
wow, it'll be. I sat there for a while and thought about some of these as well, and it's still gone absolutely
Well, you
wrong.
know what? Watching it back, the amount of times we mention things like how Quattararo would be a factor and things like that, stuff just did not work out the way it should have
Yeah,
this
and then
season.
Bastianini got injured immediately, and it's like,
And everyone was like, it's going to be. Everyone thought Bastianini would be in. Well, Martin ended up doing it, didn't he?
I'm fairly sure
Taking the
we were,
fight.
yeah, were we both trying to decide between Bastianini and Bagnaia for
Yep.
MotoGP champion, or yeah.
Yep.
In the end, we should have been looking at Martin because I think
Yeah.
I even said in the video that Martin is too inconsistent to challenge for a title. Because I said that's why I didn't want to pick Pramac for team championship.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
That is exactly what you said.
I said him and
That is
Zarco are
exactly
too
what you said.
inconsistent, and they both went. And Zarco even won a Grand Prix this year.
Yeah.
So
Oh, we didn't mention that as well. That was awesome. That was
yes,
awesome.
on a Saturday at Phillip Island as well. It
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was a
yeah,
Saturday.
it was Saturday, yeah, because they had to
Jeez.
move it,
Because
and
we
then
didn't
they
end up
didn't.
getting the sprint on Sunday.
No.
Wow. Jeez, that feels like a
Oh.
long time ago already.
Yeah, I was gonna say it feels like a long time ago since we even did the predictions video, or
Yeah.
the opening race. But
Well,
I know
even
the
when we
start.
did our mid-season chat as well, there
Yeah,
was a while ago.
that, that was a while ago. But and
Yep.
nothing got better since for our predictions because I'd looked at our predictions at the time then as well, and I was sat on like 4 points then. So maybe
And you're
five.
stuck
Maybe
there.
Digi was doing that bad at the time that I actually may have got a point.
You might have
But
lost points since halftime. Yeah,
yeah,
Did
really
you?
was. Yeah, really, my season went badly the moment that Luca Marini hit Bastianini, and that was like second lap
you
of the
mean you
season.
mean the first race?
Yeah, it was like the first lap of the season. I think was it in the sprint or was it
It
the
was
it was
close.
the
I think it
sprint?
was. Yeah.
I think it was the sprint race. I think it was the first lap of the season,
Let's
and
have a
my
look.
predictions just went out the window immediately.
Yeah, it was the first race because he
It was
then didn't come back till Magello then.
he tried Haraf and it went really badly. And then yeah, he didn't come out to Mugello and got a top 10. And I was like, okay, maybe Bastianini can salvage something here for me, and he just didn't. I was like, okay. He got me a point actually. He got me a point for the winners.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that
fair.
was surprising. Yeah, we
See,
both got a extra point for that one.
my tactic of going for more was the wrong idea for that one.
You see, this is where I have the advantage because I figured that out from the year before when I did it, when I did my own predictions. And I did the same thing. I picked like 9 of them. And I was like, that's just not a good way to score points.
Yeah,
Like, just safely try and get like 2 or 3 points out of it.
I said it was
You
gonna
know?
be a record-breaking year for amount of wins. Actually, looking at that, I don't think there's ever been
Yeah.
10 different winners in a Grand Prix
It's
season.
just the
And
fact you thought Maverick Vinales was going to win a race.
I was confident that Aprilia were going to improve, even though I have slated them for years for how they do pre-season, and I was still like, nah, it's going to win next year, Maverick.
Anyway, it was
I
good
will-
fun. It was good fun.
yeah, it was good fun doing them. Good fun looking back on it. I don't know.
I've had a good
That's
time.
looking back at it earlier while watching testing, I was like, oh, this is awful. Why did you pick him? Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. It
Anyway,
was.
mate, we've gone about 2 hours now, so I think we should probably wrap
Yeah,
it
I
up.
think we probably
It's a
should
long watch
otherwise.
for anyone at home.
Yeah. If anyone's
But
made it this far, well done.
yeah, go have a glass of water and, rehydrate, go to the toilet.
Not
That'll
even a
be fine.
glass of water, a strong drink after listening to us waffle for 2 hours.
Yeah. In fact, I got whiskey in the cupboard. I'll be fine. We'll be fine.
I'm a student. I'll be fine.
No worries, mate. Thanks again for coming on. It's been a pleasure. We'll try and get a chat in maybe over the off season as well. Maybe after testing. Oh, well, that's a bit too close because we'll do our predictions then. We'll try and get something in between.
All right, no worries. Yeah,
I think if you're
Yeah.
up for it, it'll be. I
of
think
course.
just chat shit about whatever. you
Yeah,
know. Whatever. For
whoever's
sure, nothing will happen between now and then. But
where
whatever.
Martin's been on holiday and decided to post all of his Instagram pictures from, and because that's always what happens with Martin. As a
Yeah.
break, he
Yeah.
goes away to Indonesia, whacks his top off, and he's on Instagram immediately.
Yeah.
That's
We
how
just
it goes.
we can talk about that. Yeah.
Waffle about
You can
him
be
for
like,
an
"You
hour.
ever been to
Yeah.
Indonesia?" You can be like, "Nah," and I'll be like, "Yeah, me neither." Okay.
Martin has.
All right, mate. Thanks very much for that again.
No worries. Thanks for asking me on
Cheers,
again.
mate. See you later.